Welcome to Talking Buffalo, featuring conversations with guests from around the world of sports, media, pop culture, and all things Buffalo. With your host, Patrick Moran.
All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of the future award-winning Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Big thank you to everyone out there, as always, for watching and for listening, for following and subscribing. You guys are the best, and I truly appreciate y'all very, very much. This is going to be a Podbag episode. This is the episode where you control the narrative, your questions, your comments, your takes. We will discuss. I will respond on the show today. Not a weekly episode anymore. Don't really do it every week during football season. But with the Bills playing last Thursday, we've already done our film breakdown and biggest takeaways from that game. So I figured today would be a good day to jam one of these in. I always like doing them a lot. Some of my favorite episodes, actually, because what you guys are commenting about and asking about are going to be what we talk about on the show. I go on our YouTube page, our Facebook page, my Twitter, and I pull some of the best comments, questions, and takes and discuss them. So that's what we're doing today. As for the rest of the week, a busy week here coming up at Talk Buffalo. I'm really excited about this week. Tomorrow's show, Matt Warren from Buffalo Rumblings and SB Nation will be on. We'll talk Bills and also around the NFL. Matt does a lot of work with all the NFL teams now on SB Nation. He's great. So that's going to be on tomorrow's show. Thursday, one of my favorites, Mike Harrington from the Buffalo News is going to join me, and we're going to have a Buffalo Sabres training camp preview. Camp starts on Thursday. Veterans Report. Mike has never been one to mince words, and I'm sure he won't start this time either. So that's going to be something I look forward to. And then on Friday, good friend Anthony Marino will be returning, and we will have a pretty extensive Buffalo Bills, Jacksonville Jaguars preview, some bold predictions. It's always fun doing that with Anthony. So that's for the rest of the week. As for today, like I said, a pod bag, mostly Bills stuff. Do got a couple Sabres things as well that we're going to talk about as well. I want to dive right in, not going to waste any of your time. This is my pretty much what I say every single episode. It's not going to be a long episode, and then it turns out to be a long episode. Let's see if I can actually follow through on once and get through these in 30 to 37 minutes or so. First one, at newest James Cook stand 4. Think you know where this is going. Lots to like through 2 games, but my favorite thing has been watching James Cook. He just looks different this season, like he's putting it all together. Absolutely. Thank you for that, by the way. Yep, absolutely. James Cook, to me, if I go through the first 2 games of the season and I was going to have my biggest takeaways through 2 weeks combined, right near the top might be the way James Cook is playing right now, because I kind of feel like I undersold him a little bit. Going into this season, our camp previews throughout preseason, I was talking a lot about Ray Davis, and I was talking a lot, quite frankly, about concerns I had with James Cook, a guy who flashes but just didn't seem to have enough consistency for my liking. And I thought it was there for the taking for Ray Davis to really step in and within a handful of games kind of become more of a platoon situation. And it still could play out. Let's not get too crazy now. It's just 2 games. But over those first 2 games, James Cook, to me, has the makings of somebody who is starting to look like he could be the next big star on the Buffalo Bills. You know what I want to do real quick here? On a show yesterday, I had PK for the Buffalo Sports Collective, and James Cook came up. And I was already planning on going there with a specific player comparison, but PK kind of beat me to it. If you didn't catch yesterday's show, or even if you did, I want to play this quick clip from yesterday. It's about a minute or so long, about James Cook and a player that he is reminding both of us of.
He's got more juice than I thought he did. And I think he's got more speed and more vision. And I think it was more game 1 versus Arizona. The patience he has to let his blockers set up as well, I think that's a little bit more of a twist than we saw last year as well, where he's just more patient. I saw a little bit of like primetime Lev Bell back there, where he's kind of just standing in place, waiting for those blocks to set up, waiting for that opening and just burst through it. I've really, really liked his game. And now we haven't seen it fully in the receiving game just yet, because he still had a lot of drops in training camp and preseason. But if that can continue and get better and better, that was the only thing really for me holding him back as that true bell cow in the back is his inability to make those catches. If that fully comes along, he's got the keys to the RB room.
You son of a bitch. You got to my Le'Veon Bell take quicker than I did, because, man, that is a great comparison. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it this season. Lev Bell vibes, so to speak. He looks patient, like you said, but when he hits a hole, he is getting decisive when he does it. All right, so for you who might be newer to football and don't know much about Le'Veon Bell, there was a stretch for the Pittsburgh Steelers, 2014 and 2017, like a 4-year stretch, where he was as good or better than any running back in the NFL. And I'm not saying James Cook is as good or better than any running back in the NFL right now, but we're seeing a lot of the traits that made Lev Bell a great running back for a handful of years with Pittsburgh. He was a guy who had incredible patience, amazing vision, wait for a play to develop, not get to a hole, wait for his blockers, and then bam. But when he committed, he really committed. He ran with conviction. And of course, good speed and really good catching the ball out of the backfield as well. Again, just 2 games in, but I'm seeing a lot of that with James Cook. I talked about it on the show yesterday. I'll say it again. The difference between James Cook this year and last year for me, and look, James Cook was statistically good last year. Dude was 4th in the NFL. I almost said NHL. Dude was 4th in the NFL in rushing last year. So it's not like he's ascending into some good player now and he was a nothing last year. But there's just little things I see in him. I go back to the Miami game when I was watching the film, and there was one play where he took the handoff to the left side. Edwards and Deion Dawkins kind of caught up in a block a little bit, and I thought for sure he was going to bounce it outside. And had he bounced it outside, there was a safety. I don't remember which one. Maybe it was Holland that was just sitting there waiting to get him. And bam, that would have been a 4 or 5 yard loss. I feel like last year, that's what he does. He tries to bounce everything outside, get a big play, and in the process, be prone to making those kind of mistakes. But in this game on Thursday, he like in an instant too, I mean, in real time, goes off tackle or in between the guard and the tackle, knows that guy's out there waiting for him, the safety who came up into the box, and he cuts it inside. Now, it's only a 2.5 to 3 yard game, but it's the point. He committed to going inside, getting the tougher yards, because that's another thing he's doing really good this year. He's running really good between the tackles, just decisive. He's not getting taken down by the first guy very often. And so far, again, just 2 games. I got to keep saying that, but he hasn't dropped a pass. He hasn't come close to fumbling. That was a great touchdown catch he had where he just outran the linebacker one-on-one and got to the end zone, of course. We saw the speed for him to take it to the house on the 49-yard touchdown run. So he's making big plays, but he's also getting tough yards, even when the opponent knows that they're running the football. He's only got 149 yards rushing in 2 games. That's not going to blow you away. But again, he's doing that knowing, the defenses are knowing they're protected leads. Like in that second half of the Miami game, they may as well have had 11 guys in the box on first and second down because the Bills were not going to take a chance throwing the ball and giving Miami a gift interception. So he's running hard. He's getting the good yards. He's decisive, but he's also patient, and he is showing good hands. That's what you want from your running back. He's still ascending. I said this already. I think I may have sold him a little bit short going into the season, but the strength of the Bills, even coming into this season, was a lot of young players who are still ascending, meaning they're still getting better. Like what we saw last year was not the best that we're going to see from them. I expect Khalil Shakir to be better. I expect Dalton Kincaid to be better this year. I expected Christian Benford to be better, and God, has he been good for the first 2 games. James Cook's one of them as well. I expected him to be better and get better, and that's exactly what we're seeing. Like I said, Lev Bell vibes, and he's trending towards being like the next big Bills, quote-unquote, star player. All right, let's move on here. Small sample size, of course, but where do you have the Bills stacking up after 2 weeks? Who would you have above them on your power rankings? Okay, well, I don't have power rankings, but if I did, the only teams right now that I would have above the Bills, I think I would have the Bills 3rd right now if I were doing power rankings. I would have Kansas City number 1, and I would have Houston number 2. I'd have Kansas City number 1 because A, they're the defending champs. They haven't lost yet, and they've beaten 2 really good teams. They beat Baltimore and they beat Cincinnati just on Sunday. And not the prettiest game, especially the Cincinnati game. They were, quite frankly, outplayed for a big chunk of that game. And as always seems to be the case, they are the benefactors of a couple controversial officiating calls. Now, I know a lot of people were losing their minds saying the refs were cheating. That pass interference could have been the game if it doesn't get called, but it was the right call. Point being is this: the Chiefs, even when they're not playing their best, they just, unlike any other, the Bills are good at finding a way to win, but the Chiefs are unrivaled at finding a way to win. They always seem to do it. So the fact they're undefeated, defending champs, even if at home, 2 good opponents, and they're 2-0. So until somebody beats them and knocks them off, I don't know how you can't have them at number 1. And then I got Houston at number 2 right now, and it's close. It really is. Houston, they're 2-0. They've had sort of kind of like meh wins. I think beat Indy in week 1, Chicago, Sunday Night Football, not overly impressive. But again, they are a 2-0 team, which other teams are as well, but they're just loaded with star players all over the place. They got a great quarterback in year 2. Their receiving core is ridiculously good. Nico Collins, by the way, we spend so much time talking about Stephon Diggs. I'm going to tell you what, when the Bills go to Houston in a couple weeks, Nico Collins is going to be the one who's scaring the shit out of me, not so much Stephon Diggs. Tank Dell as well. Like, Stephon Diggs is only the 3rd best receiver on that team. Great receivers, a good tight end in Schultz, a great running back still in Joe Mixon, and then stupid talent on the defense, led by a pair of defensive ends in Hunter and Will Anderson that are just ridiculous. Stingley's a really good corner. There's just so much talent on that team. So I got them too. And then I got Buffalo 3. And then I have them kind of like, if we were doing tiers, I probably would have, like I said, Buffalo 3rd. And then I'd have them like on the same tier, the same par with Frisco, Philly, which, by the way, I am taping this Monday afternoon. So Philly is playing on Monday Night Football. Don't know how they'll do. Maybe if they lose, I would bump them off from this. But Frisco, Philly, and Detroit. That's who I would have like kind of on par with the Bills right now. Cincinnati, Dallas, the Jets, Baltimore. I probably would have them a tier. I'd have the Bills a tier above. And then there's a bunch of teams that are 2-0 right now. But I mean, look, maybe I'll be proven wrong because every single year, without fail, a team goes from being nothing and they get off to a good start and we're like, we don't pay it any mind. But before you know it, it's been 8 games, 10 games. And then, holy shit, this team, they're good. But right now, like, the Chargers are 2-0. Pittsburgh's 2-0. Minnesota's 2-0. Seattle's 2-0. But I ain't buying into those teams right now at all. The Saints are 2-0. And they're an impressive 2-0. Holy shit, did they smack Dallas around in their own building on Sunday. That was impressive. But yeah, Saints 2-0. Tampa's 2-0. They went on the road and beat the Detroit Lions. Very impressive wins. I still got Buffalo, who's also 2-0, of course, above them. So those are tier teams below. So yeah, good question. I think I would have Buffalo 3rd. And if I looked around like on Tuesday or Wednesday and you look at like PFF and other power rankings, I'd be willing to bet the Bills are somewhere as high as 3rd and probably no lower than 5th, 6th, maybe at the worst. And they shouldn't be, by the way. At Solo Dad 18, not a lot to find wrong when you start out 2-0, including a blowout road win against a divisional rival. But 2 games in, if we're getting a little nitpicky, what has you concerned most besides the obvious injuries factor? Good question. Thanks for that, Solo Dad. Not a lot. Not a lot right now. I'll say that. The run defense, I'm a little bit concerned about that. I looked at the stats before recording this show. They've allowed 131.5 rushing yards per game so far, which is only 18th in the league. About 20 more yards per game than last year. In fact, I'm a little surprised that both these opponents, Arizona and Miami, it felt like the Bills were more than willing to give them yards on the ground, and they just didn't take advantage of it enough. And they paid the price for it. Arizona got away from it in week 1, and for whatever reason, they put a lot on Tua Thursday night in Miami, and the Bills made him pay for doing that. But anyway, yeah, the run defense, not great. A pretty quiet start, I feel like, for DaQuan Jones. I mean, it hasn't been bad, but it's been, pretty quiet. I remember last year, the first month of the season, I thought DaQuan Jones was arguably the best player on the Bills defense before he tore his pec in London in week 5. But it's been a quiet go for him early on. Dwayne Carter, the 3rd-round rookie, is coming along very slowly, not really surprising. And again, he is a rookie, a 3rd-round rookie, so not sure what you would expect right off the bat, but I haven't seen much from him. Austin Johnson has been all right, not bad. And the Bills also, their base defense is a nickel. And that's the price that they're willing to pay to give up more yards on the run maybe than the average team, because they're not going to be playing 4-3 often, if at all. And they're kind of inviting you to run the football. Again, I think coaches, when you're playing the Bills, coaches just overthink it sometimes and they get too cute. If I'm playing the Bills, I'm running the ball as much as I possibly can until they commit to stopping it more. You're keeping Josh Allen off the field if you're successful doing that. Arizona, first half, that was kind of like the blueprint. That week 1 first half was sort of like the blueprint for how to beat the Bills. Short passing, working the middle of the field, effectively running the ball, keeping the defense guessing. That's the way to beat the Bills. And again, you even said it in the question. I am being a little bit nitpicky because I don't think the run defense has been awful by any means. It's not like they're getting completely shredded by Achane or James Conner the first couple weeks. But honestly, that's all I could think about. I want to say that, if you're finding something wrong, that the passing game hasn't been that great, but it didn't need to be. No receiver, I don't think, has 100 yards now in 2 games. And honestly, who gives a shit? It hasn't mattered. It hasn't come close to mattering. Now, they've been protecting week 2, they were protecting a 3-score lead in the second half, so they weren't trying to throw the ball. Plus, Josh Allen was not going to be holding that ball in the pocket long when he did throw, because they did not want him taking any shots to his hand. So, I don't know. And the passing game was fine in week 1. It's just, it was spread out. Everyone eats. I guess if you're being nitpicky, you'd like to see like a Shakir, you'd like to see Dalton Kincaid get off to a better start. Let's go with Dalton Kincaid there. Hasn't really happened, but it also hasn't mattered. One more, then we'll get to a break here. What is your confidence level in Braylon Spector to start and also be able to stay healthy over the next month or so? Yeah, history says to not be too confident in Spector's ability to stay healthy. For what it's worth, I think he was outstanding against Miami. Having to come in right after Bernard got hurt, I thought he played great. For Braylon Spector, it's all about his health. I think he's a better athlete than I think, and a lot of you probably think as well. He is an athletic linebacker. He's not Terrell Bernard athletic. I mean, Terrell Bernard is way better. Let's be clear on that. But I think Spector is a good athlete, and I think he may actually be better in stopping the run, filling gaps in the run than Terrell Bernard is. Terrell Bernard's a lot more. He's more of an explosive linebacker for sure. He's going to get to that gap quicker. He's going to make splash plays that Braylon Spector I don't think is capable of making. But I think Spector is solid. Tell you this, going back to last year, no one even talks about him being injured, but the way things played out with Bernard being out and having to ultimately go to A.J. Klein, a healthy Braylon Spector in that Chiefs game might have went a long way towards the Bills actually winning. You know, we keep saying, well, Terrell Bernard had played, the Bills might have beat the Chiefs. Tell you what, if Braylon Spector played, the Bills might have beat the Chiefs as well. But anyway, I was impressed with him against Miami. By the way, I think Dorian Williams, you know, I didn't even ask about him. I'm going to say this anyway. Dorian Williams has been pretty damn good so far this year as well. I mean, he's made a couple of mistakes, been fooled a couple times, especially early in that Arizona game. A couple of misdirection plays, some coverage lapses and things like that. But he's stepping up his game. I thought he was really, really good against Miami as well. Even though PFF, for whatever inexplicable reason, gave him a pretty shitty grade. I disagree with that. But anyway, back to Spector. My confidence level in him is more reasonable if it's more shorter term. Like, if we're talking 4 weeks or so, like Terrell Bernard, because nothing's been official yet. We just know that he hasn't torn his pec and that it's only strained. So if he goes on IR, he misses 4 games. 4 tough games coming up too, by the way. My confidence level in Spector is not through the roof, but it's fine. Now, if it's longer than that, maybe not so much, just because history tells me that I'm not going to trust Braylon Spector to stay healthy if he's out there for 4 straight games. Anyway, let's take a real quick break, come back. Plenty more Bills stuff, and a couple Sabres things coming up down the chute as well. All right, I am back with a Podbag episode. Again, this is the episode where you control the narrative. Your questions, comments, takes from our YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook pages featured on this show. At Angel Us Crew says, how great does it feel to be dead ass wrong? That's funny and true. Honestly, it feels pretty good. It feels pretty good. I'm sure, without explaining, because that was literally the extent of the question, I'm sure what he or she is referring to is last week's show, the predictions episode, where I predicted that the Buffalo Bills were not only going to lose to the Miami Dolphins, but in the process, they were going to see their NFL record 42, which is now 43 straight games where the Bills have not lost to anybody by more than 6 points. So I predicted the Bills. I think I had the score being 30-20 Miami. And I just thought all the factors were in place there. You know, Miami is short week. They're at home. Bills are, banged up. No Teron Johnson. We knew he wasn't going to play. No Dwan Smoot. And then just Miami just desperately needing to beat the Buffalo Bills. I mean, my mindset was, if you don't beat this team now, when the hell are you going to beat them? Josh Allen playing with a banged up left hand. So I liked Miami. That's what I went with. And I had a couple other bold predictions that were awful as well. I said that Jordan Poyer was going to have a significant impact on this game. Could not have been more wrong. In fact, if anything, Jordan Poyer had a significant impact that benefited the Buffalo Bills, to be honest with you. I can't remember. I had a couple other predictions as well, but they were probably all wrong. Yeah, I had Miami winning by 10, and that didn't happen. So how does it feel to be dead ass wrong? It feels pretty good because guess what? Just like most of you out there, I wanted the Bills to win. And I'll say this. Look, I'll catch some shit, man, when proven wrong. And if it's something I'm going against the Bills on, I'll gladly eat that crow. I promise you that. But I think, for the most part, most people who listen and watch this show, I feel like you respect me being honest and objective with you. Like, I'm not going to pick the Bills to win a game if I don't think they're going to win that game. And I'm not going to praise a player or a portion of this team if I don't feel it's deserved. If I don't feel it's warranted. I'm not going to praise and say a bunch of good things about a player or a team or a position or whatever for popularity points or just for downloads or for likes. Maybe I should, but I don't. I also, I will continue to have takes and predictions without fear of being wrong and being called out for it. I'm showing you that right now by featuring this question on the show today. I think it's okay. It's okay. It's better than being, I like to call them receipt chasers. People who never have any takes and never have anything to say. They just collect receipts and they wait for you to be wrong so that they can call you out for that. I think that's just pretty weak. And I haven't done that on the show, and I'm not going to start doing it on the show. If we go to a week where I don't like the Bills that specific week, I will pick against them. Probably won't be the last time. Although, if I feel like this team's going to play against the way they did against Miami, I might pick the Bills for the rest of the season. At Face a Bear, 80-24. I wouldn't call Mike McDaniel a fraud of a coach. McDaniel was a fraud of a leader, whereas Sean McDermott is not. All right, thank you for that, Face a Bear, 80-24. I kind of feel like that's intertwined. Like, you can't be a good leader if you're not a good coach, too. Players, when it comes to Sean McDermott, I don't want to keep rehashing the same things on the show every single day, but players will run through a wall for Sean McDermott. Then you might say they'll do the same for McDaniel in Miami, but if so, where is it? Because I look at the Bills and I look at that game, and they played, they being the Bills, just played with so much more urgency, so much more confidence. Miami, time and time again, they go into a shell when they play the Buffalo Bills. They go into a shell when they play other good teams. Look what happened to them last year when they had to go into the cold against City in the playoffs. They literally folded like a tent. They ran for the bus. This is common over the last couple of years with the Miami Dolphins. There's two stats to me that really show you the difference between the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins. And I'm not even going to talk about head-to-head. I'm just talking about overall. Here it is. Here's your biggest stats. The one with the Bills we talk about all the time, you already know this. With the win on Thursday night, the Bills have now went an NFL record, the most in history ever, 43 consecutive games they have went without losing to a team by more than 6 points. I really hope that you can understand and appreciate how hard it is to play in the NFL week after week after week, regardless of who the opponent is, and not even have one complete stinker where you're just flat as can be. You don't show up, you mess around, and you find yourself losing by 10 points. Forget 10 points, 7 points, a full touchdown and an extra point. 43 straight games. That has not happened for the Buffalo Bills. That's literally almost 2.5 full regular seasons worth of football games where the Bills have come out and played well enough at the very least, even when they haven't played their best game, or even if they play bad, they find a way to stay in the game and just not get beat down. It doesn't happen. That's your Buffalo Bills. Let's flip it to the other side with the Miami Dolphins. This stat to me is so telling. They are literally 1-11 in their last 12 games against teams with a winning record. Let me say that one more time. The Miami Dolphins, the last 12 times they've played a team with a winning record, are 1-11. Now, you tell me, at some point, if you can't beat a team that's got a winning record at some point, how is that coach not a fraud? How is that coach not a fraud? You tell me. There's things to criticize about Sean McDermott. Lord knows I've done it. Lord knows you've done it. But he finds a way to have his team ready to play week after week after week and put them in positions where at the end of the game, win or lose, they at least are in it and they have a chance at the very end. They beat a lot of good teams, including the Miami Dolphins. Well, no, maybe because I don't think Miami's that good of a team. You know why? Because you don't go 1-11 against teams with winning records over a 12-game span and call yourself a good team. I don't want to hear that he's a good coach. He's a fraud to me until you start winning games late in the season and you start beating good teams. None of this shit matters to me. He's a fraud in my book. A couple more here. Still a ways to go, but how are we feeling about the Jags game next Monday night? Confident, but I'm sure anxiety is going to creep in because the Bills play awful against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Not on the level because they haven't played nearly as many times, but kind of like how the Bills own the Miami Dolphins. It's been the opposite with Jacksonville. They lost to them in London last year, and that was an ugly-ass game. It was an ugly game the way the Bills played. Also an ugly game because they lost Milano and Daquan Jones that day. They lost to them 9-6 in 2021. I'll never forget that game because the night before, Resurgence Brewery, well, now it's the Overreaction Sports Show. Joe Miller had a live show with Jay Spence, and me and Nate Gary were guests on there, and we would barely even acknowledge that the Bills were playing Jacksonville the next day. We kept talking about the Super Bowl and, this and that, forgetting they had a game. Well, the Bills forgot they had a game too because they lost 9-6. Sean McDermott's just 1-3 against Jacksonville in his Bills career. So, it's the opposite of Miami, where everything seems to go right. Everything seems to go wrong when they're playing the Jags. That said, I'm still confident because the Jags have been shitty as could be early on. They're 0-2. Should have beat Miami, but they blew that game. They look stale. They look bland. I saw a post game with Doug Peterson, and he just looked defeated after Sunday. The Bills are the better football team, and I'm sure they're mindful, of what's ahead after this because beating the Jags at home, which you should in prime time, will get you to 3-0. And then you start that absurd stretch of 3 games, man. At Baltimore, at Houston, at the New York Jets. Now, we'll talk specifics throughout the week, but so I'm confident of the Bills beating Jacksonville this week because they're the better football team. And they got all the momentum. And Jacksonville looks like they're 1 or 2 punches away from folding the tent already in 2024. So I'm confident, but I'm also mindful of how bad the Bills have looked against Jacksonville. That kind of scares me a little bit. And leads into this next comment. I don't have much to add to it, but pretty long one, but I thought this was worth reading it's at Mazvids. He says, I'll add that Allen plays terrible against the Jags. The rest of the team usually holds its own. Here's why. Jacksonville knows how to stop Allen. Their pass rush is good enough to get pressure with just 4. They drop 2 safeties to take away the deep ball, and Allen is not patient enough to take the small stuff underneath all game. This year will be different. We could dominate on the ground in the run game. Talked about that. And run design short passes with no deep options. They get Allen in trouble. And when the Jags are forced to get out of their high safety 2 formation, Allen can strike deep to Coleman or MVS. I fully expect the Bills to finally get over the hurdle of Jacksonville this season. This won't be another 9-6 embarrassment like 2021. This will be a 35-13 Bills blowout. There it is. Your first Buffalo Bills, Jacksonville Jaguars prediction of the week, courtesy at MadVids. Solid take. Solid prediction. I'll clip this if it comes to fruition. I'll even add one other nugget that benefits the Bills this week, too. Evan Ingram got hurt his hamstring in warm-ups on Sunday and did not play. If he don't play for Jacksonville on Monday against the Bills, that will be a very, very big blow for their offense. One of the things I think that could scare me the most about Jacksonville is their very talented tight end, and I'm not sold on the Bills, being able to effectively cover the tight end yet so far this season. At Paulie 13 Johnson, will there only be one AFC team that makes the playoffs? If I had to bet today, I'd bet on the Jets too. Again, being honest with you, they're still good. Aaron Rodgers is still working his way back some too. You could see it. I think they're going to get better in the passing game. Their defense is pretty good. If he holds up, look, the Jets are 100% dependent on Aaron Rodgers lasting and playing well for the long haul. I don't think he's going to be 2020 even Aaron Rodgers, okay? He's not going to be better than he was before he hurt his Achilles. He's goddamn 40 years old, right? But if he could just play well enough, and more importantly, if he could stay healthy for 17 games, I think the Jets are going to be very much in the mix at the end of the game. Thoughts on Deion Dawkins' Buffalo Snow Crunch cereal? I don't eat it. I don't eat much cereal at all, but I'm going to pick up a box. I don't know if you're watching on the video side here. Well, I kind of got the screen's a little bit blurred, but behind me, I actually have some Flutie Flakes and Kelly Crunch cereal boxes right behind me. And then off camera, to my left here, you can't see it on the camera, but I got a couple of Josh Jack's bowl or boxes of cereal as well. So I'm sure I'll add to that. I'm not going to be eating it. Pretty cool for Deion Dawkins to get his own cereal brand, though. A couple Sabres things to finish off. At Cary Bison Springs, will first-round pick Consta Hiladius make the opening night roster as a rookie? All right, let me preface this. I don't know. I do plan on having a fun conversation with Mike Harrington on Thursday's show about a lot of these prospects and stuff. Obviously, Mike covers the team and he'll give you hella better insight than I ever could. I do know this, though. He'd have to be, if he's going to make this roster out of camp as a rookie, he'd have to be on that third. He's not going to be a fourth line guy. What the hell's the point? He'd have to be a third line guy. Ryan McLeod is that center. And whoever doesn't win that top 6 forward job between Jason Zucker or Zach Benson. So it's going to be either Zucker, Benson, McLeod, and then it would be Hellenius if he were to win that job. It's a big ask. It's a big task. I think Jiri Kulik would be the bigger contender for that spot there. Maybe even Isaac Rosine if they're going to go young there as well. I'll tell you this, it's going to be a log jam in that bottom 6, especially that fourth line. So if it's McLeod and either Zucker and Benson, especially if it's going to be whether it's Hellenius or Kulik or Rosine, any of those guys, there's going to be a couple of guys on that fourth line that are going to be on the outs. Because you got Lafferty, who's new. You got Ob Kobal's new. You got, who's the other guy? Malenstein. So that's 3 new guys right there. That doesn't even count Krebs or Greenway. So that's 5 guys basically for 3 checking line spots. I wouldn't be surprised if something gives there. My money, if I had to bet right now on it, my money would say Krebs or Greenway start the year on the third line, and Lindy Ruff. We'll see what happens from there. Those guys just have more experience, and I kind of feel that's the way they would go. Again, something that I will definitely be talking about on the show Thursday with Harrington. At Boomer Tank says he's looking forward to seeing how big of an effect Lindy Ruff could have on playing style, whether it's in front of the net along with the boards. I couldn't agree with you more, dude. One thing that will change with the Sabres that I could bet on right now, and I don't think you need to cover the team or just, be in the trenches to know this, is just accountability. Lindy's going to bring accountability. Lindy's going to bring credibility, street cred to this organization, at least inside that locker room. He's going to be respected. I'm not sure how much Don Granato, I thought he was a good developmental coach, did a lot of good things, but I'm not sure how much he was actually respected or maybe even feared a little bit by his players. And I think this team was an organization that lacked accountability. Like, they weren't afraid to make mistakes because there was probably no fear of consequence if they did. That's not going to be the case with Lindy Ruff. Confident in that. I also think they're going to be a better bottom 6 team, a more physical, tougher to play against team on that bottom 6 for sure, which of course is going to have a big Lindy Ruff blueprint on it. I think ultimately, though, the key for Lindy Ruff is going to be if they play more physical in front of the net, if they play better along the boards. For me, the biggest key is, will Lindy Ruff get the most out of his talented core players? The guys on defense, Rasmus and Power, Samuelson, Byram. Is he going to get the most out of those guys? Is he going to get the most out of guys, the young talented forwards who played really good 2 years ago, and then a lot of them dropped off on various levels last season? Tage Thompson, Alex Tuck, Cousins, especially Dylan Cousins. Are they going to play like stars? Are guys like Jack Quinn and Paterka and Benson, who we talked about, will Lindy Ruff help them get to that next step? That's something I think ultimately is going to come down to whether Lindy Ruff can get the job done and whether Kevin Adams is GM of this hockey team a year from now. Last question here. That's not even a question. It's a statement. And I appreciate this, man. At Dale Bechtel 8904 just says, "Go Bills. Love your show." Look, that really means a lot. And I'm not just saying that. When somebody tells you that they enjoy what you're doing, they love your show, they respect what you do. I know, you'll hear somebody say thanks or, appreciate that. But in this case, I really do. I really do. I've learned a lot from some other content creator buddies. I'll give you one quick example. Then I'm bouncing here. This is where the show goes an extra 10 minutes and I end up making this longer than I wanted. But I do need to say this real quick. Perfect example is my guy, Joe Marino from Lockdown Bills. I've had over the course of the summer 2 times where I've spent time with him. One, he met me at Sunny Reds. We did a live show at Sunny Reds and also Rally at the River before the Arizona game at Buffalo River Works. He did a live show. Both of them were fantastic. A great turnout for both. But really, what impressed me most about Joe, besides quite frankly, and I've talked about this, being a little bit surprised at how loyal his fans are, how much they love him. It's his interactions with the fans. He really, truly, you could tell how much it means to him, how much he appreciates it. He makes it a point to try to have, even if it's just for 20 seconds, a small, respectful, notable conversation with everyone who comes up to him. He'll make sure to get your name, ask where you're from, whatever, stuff like that. And it just him taking those moments to really appreciate people that appreciate him. And it's resonated with me a lot recently. And now I'm kind of feel that same way. I don't know that I'm not as good as Joe Marino's showing appreciation for when people go out of their way to thank you for what you do or whatever, that you bring some value to, their fandom. It's really cool. And like I said, I'm very, very, very appreciative to that. And it's not just words. I really mean it. So it's going to do it for this show. Like I said, I'm going to be back tomorrow. Matt Warren from SB Nation and Buffalo Rumblings. Talk Buffalo Bills, NFL, plenty more. Talk to you guys then.